Hi everyone. Today I am going to be doing my first traditional painting on this channel. I'm delving into gouache for today, which is a really fun medium to use. If you're not familiar, gouache is like the love child of watercolor and acrylic. It's thick and pigmented like acrylic, but you can add water to thin it out and act more like watercolor. The one I use is whole bean acrylic gouache, so once the color dries, you cannot pick the color back up. Some gouache you can pick the color back up if you add water, similar to watercolor, but not acrylic gouache. It leans a little bit more towards the acrylic side than the watercolor side. It also dries matte, which I really love. I find it to be a beginner-friendly medium. It's very versatile and can be used in different ways. It can be a bit of a learning curve to find the perfect water to paint ratio to get nice smooth coverage, but that's the only hurdle that I've noticed so far. For this piece, I'm using my new sketchbook to test how it holds up to gouache. It actually performed better than I thought it would, and didn't buckle much at all, even when I used a lot of water on a big area. I was a little apprehensive because I used some brushes that hold a lot of water, and the paper is not super thick or toothy, but it did pretty well. Speaking of brushes, the first brush I use to cover large areas is a recent brush I bought. It's handmade and it's made of squirrel hair. It's supposed to hold a ton of water, so you don't need to constantly go back dipping into your water. It's a pretty good brush, actually. I really enjoyed it. It isn't great for details, of course, or at least the one that I have. It's quite a thick brush, but it's way better than a normal brush because you don't have to worry about getting dry brush strokes and having things not glide very smoothly. I also bought a few more that are thicker than the one I'm using, plus a synthetic squirrel hair one. Learning about the natural brushes and seeing the high costs of them made me do my own research into brushes. I was thinking how I could make my own. I wasn't really interested in shaving a squirrel, but I wondered if human hair could work. I guess it doesn't hold up super well. It doesn't hold water well like certain animal furs do, unfortunately. And also, no, apparently cat hair doesn't either, so my cat is spared from a little trim. The rabbit hole I went down eventually made me conclude that I'm just gonna stick to buying brushes from people that know what they're actually doing and not try to Frankenstein my own brush and make some kind of horrendous disaster or waste a lot of time making something that just doesn't work very well. So, no trims from anyone, just stick to buying. I haven't really talked too much about the drawing that I've been doing. It was pretty straightforward. Really, it was just a silly little idea that popped into my head. It's a retro-inspired robot, like, kind of 60s, 70s themed, who's advertising her hotline for love troubles. I imagine she advises whoever calls in regarding their love life. I like mixing weird concepts together that have never existed together in real life, like sentient robots in a 60s retro timeline. I think that's really fun and kind of spins things on their head, and it's definitely a way you can be more creative with different ideas when you can combine things that don't normally coexist together and see how they would coexist together. Obviously, this is not a super great example of it, but just the thought of a sentient robot giving people advice on their love life to me is just quite silly and funny, especially when you think about, how does a robot know more about love than we do? But I guess that's part of the joke. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think the painting came out quite well. I chose a very pastel theme for everything. Originally, I was going to stick with the retro theme, do some bold, colorful primary colors mixed in with some browns that's very reminiscent of the 70s. But at the end, I was looking through my paints and I thought I really want to stick with just the two paints and not go about mixing my own colors. So I just took the color straight from the tube. I think I mixed maybe one purple, but everything else is just one of the paints that I have. And I think it came out quite well. I probably could have done some color studies beforehand to really plan out where I wanted everything, but I decided to just jump right in. And I think it still turned out well in the end. I probably could have come up with some more interesting color combinations. I think maybe the only thing I would change is the heart is quite saturated compared to everything else, but it's kind of the pop that stands out, so I don't really mind it that much. And I think I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, so hopefully you are too. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and I have lots of other videos on my channel that you can check out as well. Thank you for watching.